here's a story. We are sitting here on the verge of the 50th anniversary of the San Francisco Zen Center. Tomorrow is the date that the Articles of Incorporation were signed 50 years ago. A teacher named Yunman, which means cloud gate, living in China more than 1,000 years ago, was talking to the assembly, and he said, "What is the teaching of the entire lifetime? What is the teaching of an entire lifetime?" And he answered the question by saying, "An appropriate response." In contemplating the talk today, I thought, what would be an appropriate response to this occasion? And what I thought was, perhaps, some stories. Tell some stories. So I offer you some stories. I already have given you some stories. May I offer another? A while ago, I was in New York City, the part called Brooklyn. And the thought arose in my mind, the naked city. Years ago, there was a television program in the United States, and it was called The Naked City. I watched that show when I was a boy. I think at the beginning of the show, by the way, the naked city is, I think, referring to New York City. At the beginning of the show, I think it said, "There are 8 million stories in the naked city. You are about to hear one of them." And I think at the end of the show, they would say, "There are 8 million stories in the naked city. You have just heard one of them." And on this occasion, 50 or 60 years after I watched the show, when that thought came to my mind, I thought, oh, New York City is actually a naked city. What's it naked of? It's naked of all the stories about it. Every moment, there's 8 million people there who have a story of New York, of the naked, unadorned New York. But living beings have trouble dealing with naked cities, so they make up stories about them. And so the show celebrated people's stories about this naked city. But that was the first time I sort of had that understanding of the show was really kind of a Dharma message that New York City is actually, the actual life experience of New York City is naked of the 8 million stories that are constantly generated about it. So I'm thinking now, there's a naked Zen Center. And I don't know if there's 8 million stories of Zen Center right now, but there's hundreds of thousands of stories of Zen Center, of the naked Zen Center. This is not to demean the stories, which are the appearances of Zen Center. Actually, I propose that if we take care of these stories, if we're compassionate with our stories of Zen Center, and we calmly contemplate our stories of Zen Center, that this could be a path to realizing the naked Zen Center, the Zen Center of reality. So we have a story that, as I heard Abbess Ajahn Roshi say, on the afternoon of October 22nd, 1959, Shunryu Suzuki Shunryu Roshi, landed at the San Francisco airport. He came to San Francisco to be the priest in a temple called Sōkoji. Sōko is short for San Francisco, and Ji means temple. And little by little, non-Japanese Americans found out about Suzuki Roshi and started to practice with him. And then, after less than 2 years, the San Francisco Zen Center was founded and lived together with the Japanese-American Sōkoji temple. They lived together and practiced together until 1969. That's a story about Zen Center. And as Baker Roshi said yesterday, Suzuki Roshi expressed a wish to have a place where he could practice together with his students more intimately, where he could show the body of the practice in daily life to the students he was living with. And so this wonderful resort was found in the mountains of the Los Padres National Forest in Marin County, California. And that place, which is called Tassajara Hot Springs, became Zen Mind Temple, and a monastery was started there. And I believe the monastery had its opening ceremony about 45 years ago this summer. It's the first practice period of that monastery at Tassajara was 45 years ago this summer. I don't know how it happened. There's stories, I could tell stories how it happened, but anyway, Reb Anderson went to San Francisco in the summer of 1967. That was the summer that Tassajara started, but it's also sometimes called the Summer of Love, was it? There was a lot of things going on in San Francisco. He went to San Francisco for some reason and ran into the Summer of Love, which he was amazed by. He really was amazed. It was amazing. And then, so for some reason or other, he went to Tassajara in a Volkswagen Bug over that mountain road. And when he got there, he found an old high school friend. And he met Richard Baker, who had just finished the practice period where he was, at the beginning of which he was ordained as a priest. And I think you were you were also the head student, the head monk that time. So he just finished that practice period of being head monk, and that practice period was over, so guests could come in. I came in, and I met him, and he was very friendly, and asked me where I was from. I said Minnesota, and he said, "Oh yeah, you have a really great department store there named Dayton's." He was very impressed by Dayton's department store. Dayton's also then started this thing called Target. You heard of Target? He could see the vision of the Dayton company. And then, is Peter Snyder here? Anyway, Peter Snyder came up and talked to me. Peter was the director of Tassajara. He was also very friendly. He interrogated me about my motivation for coming. And then I was sitting there on this path at Tassajara, which is sometimes called Tassajara Avenue. I was sitting there meeting the various monks at the monastery, and in front of me there was a foundation, a stone foundation for a building which would become the stone kitchen of Tassajara. And the carpenters were walking around there, and one of the carpenters was Paul Disco. And I was ordained with Paul. So there he was. I met him, and I met many other of the monks in that monastery, and I really enjoyed them, but I really didn't like Tassajara. It was too many flies for me, and it smelled bad. So I really was happy to get out of there and never really wanted to go back. Even though the monks were very good people. After I left, I had second thoughts. Maybe I would like to go back, actually, and practice there. Here's a story. Suzuki Roshi wanted to give something really good to America. And the thing he had that he thought would really be good was the practice of the Buddha way. He thought giving Zazen, giving Zen meditation to the people of America would be a really nice gift. And he wanted to come and give that gift. And he came and gave that gift. And when I went to Tassajara, I didn't like the smell, but I somehow wanted to come back and receive that gift, that practice. And so I came back to San Francisco in December of 1967, but I went to San Francisco, not Tassajara, and I went to the Zen Center because I wanted to talk to people there about how I could start practicing at the Zen Center. And the address of the Zen Center, at that time, it was still the Zen Center and the Japanese congregation were still in the same place, and the address was 1881 Bush Street. So I went to 1881 Bush Street, and I knocked on the door. Bum, 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 bum. I recently found out that bum, 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 bum is called the fate motive of the Fifth Symphony. Fate knocking at the door. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. That's an apocryphal story, but it's a good one, isn't it? That's Beethoven's The Knock of Destiny, the knock of fate. Boom, 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 boom. And the door opened. And there was an elderly Japanese man. But he didn't look like a monk. He had just normal civilian clothes on. And normal length, visible hair. And he said, he's opened the door and stepped back and gestured that I could come in. So I went in. When I got in there, the room was pretty much filled with other rather elderly Japanese men. And they were smoking cigarettes, most of them. And I didn't know too much, but it looked like they were playing the game of Go. So I knew a little bit about Zen, so I sat and watched them play Go and smoke cigarettes. I didn't sit there too long, probably not even a half an hour. And the thought occurred to me, even though this is 1881 Bush, maybe it's not the Zen Center. I'm very glad to see you guys are laughing. So I said to these guys, I said to one of these gentlemen, "Is this the Zen Center?" And he said, "No. The Zen Center is next door. This is 1881B. Zen Center is 1881A. So I left the Go Club and walked about 100 feet and dun, 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 dun. I was coming to join the San Francisco Zen Center, and I wanted to learn about Zazen, and I was coming to practice with the community, and I was also coming to practice with this teacher, Suzuki Roshi. When I was at Tassajara, Suzuki Roshi was not there. I didn't get to meet him when I visited Tassajara after the end of the first practice period. I went to San Francisco to meet him and ask him if I could practice there with him and his students. So the door opened, and there was a Zen monk, obviously. And shaved head and robes. And the person looked like he was about 35 to 38. And I heard Suzuki Roshi was about 60. And I thought, wow, he's really looks good for 60. I mean, really young and vibrant. And then I said, I come because I would like to join the Zen Center community. I'd like to become a member of Zen Center and practice here. And he said, come in. So I stepped inside, and he showed me into his office, and he said, please sit here. I'll call the president of Zen Center, and they can come and talk to you about it. So he called the president, and the president said, well, I'll be over in a little while. And then he sat down and worked at his desk. And I watched him work at his desk. And he was very diligent, but he was very sleepy. So while he was writing, he kept falling asleep while he was writing. But then when he woke up, he would go back to work, Like he didn't hit his head on the table, but almost, But he just kept working on it. He was very diligent. I was impressed, really, and I still am. And then the president came to the door. His name was Silas Hoadley. Knocked on the door, came in and said, oh, please come over to my place. And then I went over with him, and I said, was that Suzuki Roshi? And he said, no. That was Katagiri Sensei, who's about 35. Very handsome, what I might call now, young man. At that time, I was just a little kid. He looked like an old man. So I went over and talked to Silas about being a member. He was very cordial to me, explained to me how to do it, and offered me some tea, made me some tea. And I went into his kitchen and I sat down in one of his chairs and went right through the chair to the ground. And he said, "You must be rather dense." I'm so happy to see these young men able to follow my abstruse discourse. So, I signed the documents of membership. Not at that moment. I came back the next day, I think, and went to the office, and I think Yvonne Rand was the secretary, and I became a member of Zen Center at that time. But also, another thing happened is I found out when Zazen was. I was going to stay in Zen Center for a little while, a few days, over a weekend actually. I came from Minnesota by air in December to San Francisco for a weekend of Zazen. And so the next morning I went to Zazen in the Zendo at 1881A Bush Street, and I sat there. I was sitting on the ground, and at the beginning of the period, a person who I assume was Suzuki Roshi walked around the students. And all I saw, because I was looking down on the ground, was his feet. And when the feet went by, I thought, those feet can teach me Zen. And then we sat some periods of Zazen, and afterwards, all of the practitioners exited, but we exited, there was two doors, there were actually more than doors, 4 doors in the Zendo. One door which people usually entered, and then there was another door into Suzuki Roshi's office, and we filed out through his office, and he stood at the door and bowed to each one of us. And when I bowed to him, following the people in front of me, I did the same thing they did. I bowed, and when I bowed to him, I looked in his face, and he looked at me, and then he looked away. And I thought, was I not supposed to be looking at him? Was that impolite? Did I do the right thing? Was that good that I looked at him? Is he afraid of me? What? I didn't know. I really didn't know. And I really didn't know what happened. And I was strongly struck by that, and I thought, that seems like a good start. So I left San Francisco, and I tried to get my life together to let it fall apart so I could give it up and leave Minnesota and leave my graduate school and come to Zen Center to practice Zen. And I started to try to come back in April of the following year. And I tried to ride a motorcycle to San Francisco. But the motorcycle was not suitable, was not appropriate for the trip. It couldn't do it. It was too weak. It was a dirt bike, a scrambler. So it just couldn't, it kept breaking down on the freeway. In the spring winds blowing from west to east, it just couldn't do it. However, when I turned around and went with the wind, it did quite well. And I flew back to Minneapolis. After only about 500 miles, I gave up and went back to Minneapolis. But I didn't give up trying to go to Zen Center to practice. So Next, I thought, I'll get a Volkswagen bus. So I got a Volkswagen bus, and I tried again. It was a 1958 Volkswagen bus, and it also was too weak to go west into the spring winds of the prairies, and it kept breaking down. However, that also, when I turned it around, it went really well with the wind at the back. And I zipped back to Minneapolis in this Volkswagen bus. And then a friend of mine had another idea. He said, why don't you buy a Cadillac hearse? He says you can get these old hearses, which have really low mileage, for practically nothing. And they have lots of horsepower. So I bought a Cadillac hearse. And I put my motorcycle in the back. And also going this way, I could bring my dog too. So I took my motorcycle and my dog into the car, and I headed again to San Francisco. And to make a long story short, I arrived at 1881 Bush Street with that hearse and my dog. And I pulled up and parked, and I walked into a flat where Zen students were living across the street from the temple. And my high school friend was living there, and I moved in. And that's it. Then I could practice with the wonderful Zen Center Sangha and Suzuki Roshi right across the street. And then in 1989, the Japanese congregation said, Zen Center, we love you, so you're wonderful people, but would you please move out? There's more of you here than us now. We think you need your own space. So we found this wonderful practice place. 1881 Bush is on Bush and Laguna. And so Silas Hoadley and Ananda Dallenberg found this wonderful building down Laguna, about 10, 15 blocks, which was a residence club for Jewish girls. And we got that place, so then many of us moved over and moved into that building. And lived with Suzuki Roshi and each other. And we're still doing that, in a sense. And then, as you know, only about 2 years after moving into the wonderful temple on Laguna and Page, Suzuki Roshi, actually he got cancer and didn't tell us. He had cancer, gallbladder, a malignant gallbladder removed, and he didn't tell us that it was malignant. But then, about 8 months later, he had to tell us that he had to be known that he had liver cancer. So he died that fall. But before he died, his successor, Richard Baker, came back from Japan and was installed as abbot. And then Suzuki Roshi died. And then, I don't remember exactly when, but Suzuki Roshi died on December 4th, 1971. And then the new abbot felt that Zen Center needed 3 practice places. He felt that Tassajara and the city center wouldn't quite work for the community. He told me recently that he felt like it was necessary to not know where your toothbrush was If you have 2 places, you would know where your toothbrush was, but if you had 3, you'd be totally confused. So somehow causes and conditions, I don't know how it happened. There's stories about how this happened. Okay? But the stories are not how it happened. But I'll tell you a story. But that's not really, that's just a story. There's a naked story. There's a naked situation of how Green Gulch happened. I don't know what that is. But a story of it is that somehow Baker Roshi found out about the possibility of this Green Gulch Ranch being available. And he thought that that would really be good because it's a country place, but as you know, it's quite close to San Francisco. It's a country place that's not exactly a remote monastery, but it would maybe really fill out the form of Zen Center. But not so far away, so maybe a good idea. And so he presented this idea to the board of directors, and my experience, this is my story, right? Or a story. One story is there was considerable resistance to the idea of getting another practice place. One story is Zen Center was kind of doing okay financially. You know, we had this new building in Tatsu Harbor. We were kind of coping with having taken care of these two fairly new places. The payments were not so much, and so on. Some people didn't want to take on another big responsibility. But the new abbot sort of thought, well, it would be nice for us to have another big project to draw us together. Is that kind of right? Yeah. I mean, is that kind of the story? It's naked enough. So there was a meeting with the board, and lots of resistance was expressed. But one story is that Baker Roshi insisted. And some people anyway said, with resistance in their heart, okay. That's one story. Another story is, which I credit to Mel Weitzman, is that Baker Roshi, I don't think he made the strawberry shortcake. But somebody made strawberry shortcake, and it was served to the board members, and Mel said it was the best strawberry shortcake. And he said, after that, there was no way to say no. So that's, one story is he insisted, and that's why we went along with. The other one is strawberry shortcake. I don't know, but anyway, we have this practice place where we can be together and tell stories. What time is it? 5 minutes to 11. 2:11. Well, here's another story. Some people say a man is made out of mud. A poor man's made out of muscle and blood. Muscle and blood and skin and bones. A mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Boom, 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 boom. I woke up this morning, it was drizzling rain. I picked up my shovel and I went to the mine. I loaded 16 tons, a number 9 coal, and the straw boss said, well, bless my soul. You load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. If you see me coming, better step aside. A lot of men didn't, a lot of men died. One fist of iron, the other of steel. If the right one don't get you, then the left one will. You load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Boop, 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 boop. What time is it now? I've heard that Zen Center has 3 bodies. One body is sometimes called the true body of Zen Center, the Dharma body. That body is completely free of all of our stories. That's the naked body of Zen Center. The naked body, the true body. Based on this true body, which is free of stories, there's another body of Zen Center. It's called the transformation body of Zen Center. The phantom, the imaginary, the story body of Zen Center. The story body of Zen Center is somewhat restricted and challenged by the stories. But by working carefully with these stories of Zen Center, with this phantom body of Zen Center, by being compassionate with the stories that we have about our practice together, by being compassionate towards this story, imaginary body of Zen Center, and really being calm and concentrated with all the different aspects of the story, really caring for our stories, we realize the third body of Zen Center, which is called the bliss body, or the reward body. The reward for practicing compassionately and understanding that the story body is not the reality body. It's the bliss and the happiness of seeing how the unadorned Zen Center dances freely with the adorned Zen Center. The Zen Center beyond our stories is dancing with the Zen Center of our stories, of our happy stories and our unhappy stories. We have these stories. This is one body of Zen Center. Some people who live at Zen Center say, there's too much work to do here. We're so tired from working, we can barely meditate. We should have more meditation and less work. And some other people say, we should work more so that more people can come here and enjoy the place. There's stories like that at Zen Center. Other stories are, it's so wonderful, those people who work so hard and they're so joyful and they never complain. They're all so welcome and generous. And then there's stories like the people at Zen Center are not generous and they're cold and they're not welcoming. There are stories like that. People at Zen Center are so skillful, they listen to you, you know. Like I went to a copy place in Mill Valley and to pick up some stuff a while ago for the office. I said, I'm here to pick up this order. And they brought it to me and they said, I don't know what you people are doing there, but keep it up. I go some other place, you know, and they say, You know, when you people come in to pick up your orders, there's something funny about you. You like listen to us. Those are stories, those are part of the stories of Zen Center. And there's others. Many, many stories. That's one body of Zen Center. The other body of Zen Center is free of all stories. Those two bodies are always dancing freely together. And when we understand that dance, that's the bliss body. That's us practicing together, accepting our stories and understanding that they're just stories. It's like, you know, the ancestor Dogen saying, when the truth doesn't fill your body and mind, you think you understand it well enough. But when it fills your body and mind, you realize there's something beyond what you know. It's like going out in the ocean, away from the shore where there's no islands, and the ocean looks like a circle of water, but the ocean is not a circle of water. But that's the way it looks. But this is not a put down to the circle of water. It's just saying, remember that you're looking at a circle of the water in the ocean. Whatever we look at, we see a circle of water, and it's not the ocean of what we're looking at. But if we care for the circle of water with our practices, and our practices, which we also are oceans, and we have circles of water of them, if we do our practice with the circle of water, we will be free of the misunderstanding that the circle of water is the ocean. And we will enjoy both the circle of water and the ocean, again, dancing together. So let's take care of the stories of Zen Center day by day and realize the story body of Zen Center and realize the true body of Zen Center and realize the bliss body of Zen Center. Some of us who are here in the early days won't be around much longer. So I hope you guys take care of Zen Center when we're gone. Do you want to? Consider it? It would be great if you guys took care of Zen Center for us. It's here for you, to take care of if you want it. What time is it now? 11:03. Oh, I was hoping for 11:11, but I give up. May we take care of this great gift that Suzuki Roshi brought us so that the future generations can enjoy this practice. Is there anything you wish to discuss? Yes. Would you come up here, please? Please, you can use this microphone. You can sit here if you like.
I'm new to Zen.
And you're new to microphones?
Absolutely. As though it's an ice cream
cone. Is it working
cone.
now?
It's not on. Is it? Okay. Here we go. There we go. Fine. Thank you. Though I was here for a practice period 25 years ago. And
you were? Wow.
Picked a lot of chard and sat in an interview with you. You haven't aged a bit, I must say. And I mean that in all sincerity.
I'm amazed.
Outwardly. Inwardly, I have no idea, but outwardly, it's like it was 25 years ago.
Oh, great.
But
you look younger.
It's all attitude.
But I forgot your name. What is it?
Sophia.
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 Ah,
My question was about delusions. Delusions are numberless. Given that we have a neurobiology that secretes thought and secretes story, and we are surrounded by the Dharma and what is real and what is true, how do we come to know what we are holding as what are the things that we're holding within us as truths or as beliefs? How do we know what is delusion and what is authentic in regards to the Dharma?
I would propose all we know with our ordinary consciousness is appearances, is mental basically what we're knowing is the working of our mind. And so that's the teaching. Nothing but mind, nothing but mind. Doesn't mean, that's not the same as there is nothing but mind. It's just that for us sentient beings, all of our experience, all of our perception is nothing but the workings of our mind. However, we are also who we are. We are also experience. But experience is not reached by the appearance. So basically, all appearances are mental fabrications. Mm-hmm. And there's different appearances. We honor them all. We practice compassion towards all appearances. We perceive appearances. We don't perceive experience, we are experience. And we can realize experience by being compassionate towards appearance and become free of the misconception that that appearances of things are the things themselves.
Oh, so that's what delusions would then be referring to, the appearances, the personal appearances.
Yeah, and they're infinite, and our mind's conjuring them all the time. However, they appear and they say, the mind says, I'm not mind, I'm somebody other than you. That's what it appears as though it exists separate.
Okay.
The mind appears as though it's not mind.
So in a sense, much of it is the appearances are all delusion.
All the appearances are delusions in the sense of they appear to be something other than appearances. Appearances say, I'm not an appearance.
I got you.
Appearances are the tricksters. The mind in its apparent manifestation is a trickster. And if we're kind to the trickster will finally say, I was just kidding.
Perfect. I think I misunderstood or was ignorant of what delusion meant. I thought it meant error or unreal.
Within appearances, there are errors. Like 2 + 2 is 4 is different from 2 + 2 is 5. Mm-hmm. But mathematics, to me, mathematics is a thought construction. However, it's based on something which is not a thought construction. So our actual life is the basis for our conjured life. Well, I used the image recently of basically life is unborn. It's like a river. But then the river gets covered by a road. And because the road was originally a river, it's always hungry. This is from the beginning of a novel called The Famished Road. So we make the unborn into something we can grasp. And then we exile ourselves from the unborn, which is like a river. But then we got a road, and we can have stop signs and traffic violations and police and citizens and right and wrong. We need that stuff. It's a land of stories. We make the unborn into a story of birth and death. But we're hungry to go back to our actual unborn, river-like life, which is always there. If we're kind to the road opens up and allows us to start communing the with our actual life experience.
What a beautiful invitation.
What?
What a beautiful invitation to just sort of
Yeah.
free yourself up to dip back into.
Yeah. To be kind to that which is covering our direct life.
Perfect. Thank you so very much.
Any other things? Yes, please come.
I'm also new to microphones. There it is.
Now it's working.
Not new.
Yeah. What's your name?
I'm Ken.
Ken.
Thank you, Rishi. So, when you were talking about stories, a lot of them I heard were of the past. And I was hearing you talk about your experience going to Zen Center, the A building. And I was wondering if you had a story in mind for the future when you knocked on the door and how you worked with that.
When I knocked on the door, did I have a story of the future?
Like an intention or
Yeah.
a thought.
I think at that time, my story of the future was I wanted to become like the people in the Zen stories that I read. People who could, when you attacked them, they would say, oh, so this is what's going on. And when you praise them, they say, oh, is this what's going on? Because I noticed that sometimes when people attack me, I would kind of feel like, well, no, I don't need that. And when they were praising me, I said, that's fine, keep it up. I noticed I got pushed around by blame and praise. And I saw examples of people who could welcome both. And I wanted to learn that. And then I found out that they had a training program. The Zen training thing. So I thought, oh, I want to train at this to optimize my chance of living in this world with equanimity and compassion in response to everything. That's the future I was devoted to, wanted to realize. And when I first came, I guess I thought about it, I wanted to be that way with people, but I wasn't so much thinking about I want people to be that way with each other. I gradually got the other side of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other points of discussion? Charles? I'd like you to. It's a long trip, but it's worth it. I know Charles, he's been around the Buddhist scene for 40 years or 50 years.
To be with one's body means that there's a body. To be with one's body, it means that there's got to be a body there. In truth, I can never find my body.
In truth, you can never find your body, right? You can only find the appearance of your body.
Thank you. The biophysicist Beverly Rubik has said, in any 1 second interval of time, there are more events happening in the human body than all the words that have been spoken and heard, written and read on this planet through terrestrial history. That's a lot of events, isn't it? Yet we are admonished to follow our breath. I can't do that. Think of the swarm of structured activity that it takes to produce a breath. I can't follow that. So what am I to do?
Follow the appearance of your breath. Follow the the cognitive construction of your breath. Follow the circle of water of your breath. And remember that the breath you're following is only a circle of water, of the ocean of breath. Your breath in a moment is an ocean, but it appears as a little circle of water. If you're kind to the circle of water, you'll understand that that's not your breath, eventually.
Thank you, Reb.
Welcome, Charles. Charles brought Yogi Chen to Zen Center back in the 70s. Yogi Chen is a Chinese Buddhist yogi who was schoolmates with Mao Zedong. And he was a wonderful yogi. And if we run out of stories, I got some stories about Yogi Chen. But I'll just hold those for a minute to welcome your other comments or questions. Yes, please come.
Thank you, Roshi. Thank you, Roshi, for attending the questions. I have a bit of beginner's mind here, still a little bit of a ramble, so pardon the preamble and whatnot.
Welcome.
I'm new to Zazen sitting, although I've been dipping in and out of Buddhism since I read Alan Watts as a teenager.
May you always be new to Zazen.
True. What I'm playing with lately is how to approach the sitting, because I understand that right action is supposed to include, fostering good ideas, or no, not good ideas.
Wholesome ideas?
Wholesome ideas, and sustaining wholesome ideas. And so I'm presuming that in approaching the sitting, even though it is, the literal translation is just sit, and the mind state is don't move, are there other wholesome intentions or something that we should be doing as we approach a sitting and within a sitting? Because I find, during a sitting, if thoughts are arising, if I bring compassion to them at that moment, or amusement, it seems to help. But is that skillful or not?
Sounds pretty skillful to me. And also, being still is, in some sense, the fundamental act of compassion. Not moving with what's happening is the beginning of compassion. Just like if someone cries, Avalokiteshvara is sitting still with that person, listening to them. So the not moving is I would see as an act of compassion, not like not moving is cold. Not moving is really being with what's appearing at the moment. But if you want to amplify being still by saying being still means being generous, sounds good. Being still means being careful. Careful about your stillness, not attached to your stillness. Being patient with your stillness. Being relaxed and gentle and open with your stillness. That's all part of stillness. So, Zazen as an act of compassion includes stillness. Stillness, I think the stillness that we're talking about here is a stillness which is compassion.
Thank you, Roshi.
You're welcome. Any other offerings? You can't come? Okay, from the internet. I'm blinded by the internet.
This is a person who is from stories that we tell ourselves that rule our lives. How can we stop telling ourselves our stories? Or how can we change our stories to benefit us rather than harm us?
Well, if you've got a story that's ruling your life, I would say, if I have a story that's ruling my life, I would say thank you very much to the story which is ruling my life. I'm saying I vow, I intend to say thank you very much to the stories that are ruling my life. If you practice compassion and generosity towards the stories that are ruling your life, and then be very careful with them once you welcome them into your life, and be patient with them, and be calm with them, you will get to a point where you don't attach to them anymore. And when you don't attach to them anymore, they will not rule anybody's life. You don't have to change the story, but you can. But change the story as an offering. And that person can't say thank you, so I'll just assume they did. And it sounds like, Wendy, you're welcome to come.
Thank you.
You can come too, but Wendy's ahead of you. You can come right after her. Yeah. You can come up there if you want.
I wonder if we could...
Maybe you don't need a
No, I
microphone.
don't think I do. Thank you for this morning. I wonder if we could just sit and let the stories that won't be told come up, just for a minute or so, just because they're in the room and out of the room.
Okay. Would you want to time this period?
No? Yeah, okay. I'll thank you afterwards. Thank you for knocking on the door.
Thank you for your gift. That's a very important point.
I feel lost.
It's fine. I think.
Oh, okay. I just feel full of anxiety.
Thank
Like
you.
we're sitting there, my heart's going da 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 because I want to ask you.
Your heart's going da 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 da.
It's going da 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 da. Yes.
You got company.
Oh, good. Mr. loves company.
Louis Beethoven.
Louis Beethoven. All right, Louis.
He had that going too.
I think, I don't know, part of my story is that this is age-related. I like, at this age, to know where I am, to know where I'm going to be. It's like, in the future, where am I going in the future? I mean, in this life, where am I going to be? Who am I going to be with? Do I want to stay where I am right now? Do I want to go here? All these questions, it's like there's this big sort of void right here. And things like regrets are on one side, fear, anxiety, all this is going on. And it seems like I'm not alone in that.
That's right.
as we move on in life.
I've heard this story from many.
These things, we start thinking about all this.
Yes.
What have you to say that can help the situation?
Well, I say again that if we practice compassion towards these, you just told some stories. If we practice compassion to these stories, we will understand that they're just stories. And we'll become free of them. And then we can tell stories from the freedom from the stories. And show other people how to turn these stories into songs that are being expressed from the place of freedom that comes through completely using the stories to cut through the stories. But if we reject these stories, they just keep enclosing us. To make a space like Wendy just did, where the stories can come up, and where they can be welcomed and met with kindness, and tranquility, and concentration, and equanimity. And then we can start interacting with them and playing with them and understand the process by which they arise and become free of them. And then continue to tell stories with everybody else, but from freedom from the stories.
So, what I'm saying is, it's just a story that I have going right now.
Yeah. And some other people have stories that they're teenagers. And the teenagers are really horrified by the stories they have. They can barely stand to live, many of them. They're not worried about getting old. They're worrying about, going to school and being bullied or ostracized, or they're worried about dominating somebody else and what that's going to be about. So human sentient beings are living in this story realm, enclosed by it, but on the basis of all this is our actual life. But we're not going to realize it if we're not really kind and calm and eventually wise to these stories. And at a certain point in life, you have different stories than you used to have. And more stories are coming to be compassionate towards.
So would I say just be with it? Just be with the story?
Just be with the stories.
Just keep breathing through it, sitting through it?
Yeah. And be with it means say thank you to it. Be a great hostess to all stories. Don't close the door. Bum, 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 bum. Let them in. And that can be a pretty ugly visitor sometimes. Bum, 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 bum. Please come in. But then when it comes inside, be careful of it. It's powerful. Don't let in the door and then close your eyes to it. Stay awake to it. And remember that you want to practice compassion with it, even though it says, can I be really obnoxious now? And then you might say, actually, I need you to be quiet. Please be quiet. And then they say no, and you welcome their disobedience. You're obedient, even if they're not. You're going to work on it? Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is that enough for today?
Tell the Yogi Chen story.
Yogi Chen story. Which one?
Santa
Santa Claus. So I went to visit Yogi Chen, and I have a story that he lived in Berkeley. He lived on Shattuck Avenue. Did you know that we have Chinese yogis living on Shattuck Avenue? And I believe that Charles was supporting him to live on Shattuck Avenue. I don't know if you were. Anyway, he had this nice apartment there, and I went to visit him after he visited Zen Center. He visited Green Gulch and gave a talk here. Actually, I want to tell one sub-story of Yogi Chen before I tell the Santa Claus story, and that is he came to a conference at Zen Center one time on the early Chan history, and he went into the Buddha Hall at Zen Center, and at Zen Center in the city they have tatami mats in the Buddha Hall, and he stood at the tatami mat farthest from the altar, and he jumped into a full prostration, which sent his tatami mat flying away from the altar. And he was like 80 at the time, just pushed off of the tatami mat into a full prostration, and his tatami mat flew backwards. So I went to visit him at his apartment, and in his apartment he had a mantelpiece, like a Western mantelpiece over a fireplace, but he had turned it into an altar. And the ash on the altar was like almost an inch deep from all the incense he offered. And he never cleaned the altar, so it was kind of like a kind of volcanic scene. And all these Buddhas and stuff, which I would expect in a Buddhist yogi's altar, but also there was Statue of Liberty. No, not Statue of Liberty. Eiffel Tower and statue and the Empire State Building. And I thought, he's using them as tantric symbols. So but then I also noticed that he had a nativity scene. And he also had, on his altar, with all the Buddhas, he had Santa Claus. So most of this, I said, why is Santa Claus? I said, why do you have Santa Claus on your altar with all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? And he said, originally, it was a gift someone gave me. So I just put it, in my room someplace. And I was sitting in meditation, and he pointed to his meditation seat. He said, I put it over there, and while I was sitting in meditation, I saw Santa Claus go and take refuge in Buddha. And I realized that in the West, Santa Claus is a Dharma protector. The spirit of Santa Claus is a spirit of compassion and caring for living beings. So then I promoted Santa Claus from a visiting gift to a protecting deity. So now he's on the altar. Yeah, he's an amazing, wonderful person. He has passed away now. But he was a great yogi. He lived in a cave for 25 years in western China, which is also sometimes called Eastern Tibet. Is that where he lived, do you know? Huh? In Hunan. He lived in a cave in Hunan, south of the lake. Anyway, wonderful practitioner. Homage to Yogi Chen. Is that enough for today? Well, it isn't quite enough. Steve, would you come up here, please? Or you can stay there if you want to, but would it be easier for you to stay there?
Just take a minute for my foot to wake up.
Yeah. So while Steve's foot's waking up, anything else you want to bring up? We're not going to rush him. I'm inviting you to come up here and sit down and sing the missing lines, the missing verse. He showed me one more verse.
Let's see. I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine. No, let's see, drizzling rain. Fighting in trouble in my middle name.
What's that
I
part?
was raised in a canebrake by an old mama lion, and a high-toned woman made me walk that line.
You load
16
tons.
What do you get?
Another day older and deeper in debt.
Same
Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've each had experiences with a high-toned woman. Made me walk that line.
Yeah.
And that's
Homage to high-toned women that make us walk the line. Thank you. So I'll add that one to my repertoire. Thank you, Steve. Is that enough then? Can we have lunch?